Okay. Mr. Fiorini, Mr. Johnston.
Some of the comments, and particularly by Brenda from Met, but also Mark and others, focused on holding entities that are making an application for a project responsible, but not any subsidiary agencies of that. The reference to over 300 suppliers suggests that some small, insignificant, in terms of water usage, agencies are going to be out of compliance, and that will frustrate the goal of the applicant that is performing well. Yet a change to hold the entity requirement runs the risk, I think, of having marginal improvement where greater improvement might be possible if the member agencies were as diligent as the applicant, for instance. So absent a better way to distinguish between little agencies and big agencies, holding them all accountable, since they all have to do urban water management plans, is preferable to me. The other thing is that I understand people don't have much time, so they focus on what they don't like. But it would seem that this language, by saying that there has to be a significant impact on the environment, adverse environment, as well as be as being a cause for the project itself, would indicate scale, since we can't pick winners and losers or good actors or bad actors in advance, even with regard to size. So, in fact, if there are small retailers that are failing in their duty, that would seem to be something that, am I right, Joe, that the executive director could look at, or
yes,
certainly the council could
correct
as well, and discount it?
Well, in fact, the applicant can look at that, and they make the initial decision, and only if someone appeals would it come to the council, and then the council could dismiss the appeal if it's based on a minor thing. So many of those small retailers are very, very small.
So we spent a lot of time on this, and but I think the larger wholesalers have sufficient tools to obtain project approval, while the state is able to retain the pressure we want to put on all water agencies that benefit from Delta waters to comply with their own best efforts as evidenced in their urban management plans. The other thing was, and that's why I was curious about the language, a number of people spoke to paragraph 3, and I'm not sure whether there's some words that make it more acceptable, but it seems to me the heart of the bright line to comply with the policy is in paragraph 5, and a number of people commented on the feasible options language, and defer to Randy on that. But it seems to me that there is clarity on how to comply with this. And that meets the goal that I think is reasonable for interested parties to expect of us, and that is they know what it is that they have to do to be in compliance. And I really didn't hear too much on the substance of that paragraph that indicated we failed to do that.
Okay, Randy.
Okay, here's what I would recommend. No change to the first paragraph. No change to the second paragraph. The third paragraph, insert as the first sentence, it is the goal of the Delta Reform Act to reduce reliance on the Delta and improve regional self-reliance.
Okay, I just point out to you that is not consistent with the wording of the statute.
Okay. Then it is let's do it this way. Then it is the statewide goal to reduce reliance on the Delta and improve regional self-sufficiency.
I repeat the word. It is the, quote, the policy of the state of California is to reduce reliance on the Delta, ...
Okay. Well, let me attempt to offer a concept. That concept is preceding for the purpose in the third paragraph. Preceding for the purposes of the Delta Plan, that we include a sentence at the beginning indicating that this is a statewide goal. However, whatever reference that is to the Delta Reform Act, to the Stewardship Council, whatever, but add to that third paragraph that it is the statewide goal. Then, with that to be worked out by others.
Can I suggest, Mr.
Yes,
Vice
please.
Chairman, what I was going to suggest is that we actually say the policy of the state of California is to reduce reliance and improve regional water supplies. The council's goal to meet that policy objective is to reduce the amount of water used or the percentage of water used from the Delta watershed, so that we actually quote the policy and then say our goal, which is being used to implement that policy, is to reduce the water diverted from, or that way we're consistent with the act.
And I think that's in keeping with the spirit of the comments that we received today. All right, assuming that's generally acceptable. Fourth paragraph, no change. Fifth paragraph, add to the end of the first numbered sentence, if required, because there are agencies that aren't large enough to meet the requirement for a water plan, so if required. And then add language to item number 3 that that information will be included in the next update. And then finally, the last paragraph, delete the first 3 words, the evaluations of, and begin with feasible options.
And point 2 in paragraph 5, Randy, on feasible options.
Yeah, what was the recommendation there to replace?
Mr. Rentz offers some language I thought seemed to be pretty.
I think what I received from him was that identified and evaluated all feasible options to reduce reliance on the Delta, and identified opportunities for implementing those options. Now, I want to get commencing in there. He didn't have commencing. But
okay. Well, our intent was to mimic SBX 7 and the discussion in that section of the Reform Act that talks about what should be included in the management plans. And I think we'd be on safe ground. I know the word feasible is in there, but I don't remember what the other introductory and... Does anybody happen to have that? All right, David, do you mind being a staff member real quick? But it's the intent in that item number 2 to recount what it is in the Delta Reform Act that it says ought to be done by local agencies as a part of their water management plan.
He also suggested saying that feasible options could include but not be limited to, and so forth.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
It's in there.
Give us a couple more minutes.
So
It's just
while
like a
we're doing
television
that, can I
program where you have
confirm
a
the language
musical
changes? We have in item 3 included in future plans the expected outcome of for measurable reduction. Okay. Right, I got the feasible options. Could.
Explain to me again what you proposed on the third paragraph. This is the goal. I'm sorry, it's a goal. I don't support that. I think you got to use the language of the statute. There was goal mentioned one place.
So
your operative phrase is still significant reduction in water use 20%.
Well, apart from the this feasibility application question, perhaps other council members may have some reaction to the other recommendations that have been offered.
Gloria?
You know, I'm still having a problem with the concept of there's an entity like Metropolitan who has a number of agencies who comply with state law based on 2020, but there's some retailers that may not comply. So I have a problem with that harming the agency, Metropolitan, because someone else is not complying. I heard what Pat said, and you felt you're okay with that because of what Joe said. They can appeal it. I just want to understand that because I just think there are so many things that are going on out there that people and agencies are doing that are and they're doing well and they're complying with the 2020 or trying to. So that's my real issue, trying to figure out how that those whatever bad actor impacts an agency like Metropolitan or any large entity.
Follow up by Don.
Yeah, Gloria, just kind of reflecting on that, I'm wondering, certainly hearing the difficulty in trying to call out bad actors, good actors, and who's responsible. One of the things that occurred to me in listening to what some of the speakers said today, and then hearing staff and certainly our fellow council members have worked on this, is there a way to, again, not to lose the import of driving to employing, certainly best practices and actually reducing reliance. But one of the things that occurred to me was there might be a way to, in that third sentence, or third line down where it says have failed to adequately contribute to reduce reliance, maybe something that would say in the aggregate, because if you have one or two, bad actors out there, you're saying that shouldn't spoil the whole lot for a reasonable request, even on an appeal. And I don't know whether that compromises other aspects of this, because I'm not that familiar with all the various ins and outs of the law. But it seems to me that there's a way to provide some assurances to recognize some of the distinctions and yet also hold people accountable. And
so we didn't spend a
challenge.
lot of time on this, and I don't think Met finds it very helpful, but I thought it would, that number 2 in that first paragraph, that the failure, so it's a failure by this small retailer, presumably, or a couple of small retailers, if that's our example, has significantly caused the need for the export, transfer, or use. So you'd have to imagine, in the case of Metropolitan, that it had a project to export water that was a covered action in which a relatively small subsidiary of its entire network was the significant cause for the project. So it seems like that would be unlikely if in fact it's small. If it's very big, it's another matter. And then the third one, which would also have to be met, not either, but also, is that it would have to have a significant adverse environmental impact in the delta. And I guess that's debatable, but still, if it's a small agency, it's hard to think a small agency to Met, to the delta, would constitute significant harm if in fact it's small. I take it Met doesn't find this helpful because they eliminated the language altogether in their proposal, but I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Is there another way of saying that? I think to take your line of reasoning, I think, because people kind of drawing, conclusions as to how this would be treated, I think that reasonable application would go right to what you said, Pat. But I guess I'm curious: is there a way, without bogging down on the language too much, to provide that level of clarity so that people understand? And you said it pretty clearly. But I don't know if there's a way to do that. That one doesn't spoil it for all. Obviously, you have to get weighed out, and if it's small versus big, well, that does make a difference. On the other hand, it's still going to be evaluated using this as the backdrop.
Well, you could exempt everyone, and then there'd be no problem. Or we could declare that every water entity at whatever level is responsible for following state policy, which is my personal view. This applies to state and local agencies. It doesn't apply just to a wholesaler or a retailer. It applies to everyone. It's the policy of the state. That's not very confusing. What's confusing is everybody wants them to apply it to someone else. That's what's clear.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's great.
I just think I have a different approach with looking at things, looking at this plan, and I think I made some comments yesterday. I know that we have the ability to go back in, make some changes in those bad actors who are not doing things. We can change. I just believe that there are some good things going on out there that we should acknowledge, we should encourage to continue, and not regulate at this point. That's just the way I feel about the plan. If we did not have the ability to do that and evaluate what all these policies and recommendations mean, that would be different. But I think this has certainly some issues for Matt or any other folks who have come up here to the mic, that we should try to make it as clear as we can. We should try to be helpful and not regulate. Maybe that's my difference, is that I'm trying to accommodate to make sure that everyone knows exactly what things mean, because we're all trying to meet our co-equal goals. And I do think that agencies are trying to do that. Now, if they're not, I have no problem with saying we need to regulate, we need to enforce, we need to do something different. But that's just my philosophical feeling about what we're doing.
Don? Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Excuse me.
I want to say here the same thing I said earlier about ecosystem restoration. One of the co-equal goals is a water supply reliability. And in this plan, this is the only significant regulatory action the council is taking with regard to water supply reliability. And I do not believe that we can that we can really hold our heads up and say we are complying with the law if we don't step up and make the tough decision to protect, if you will, water supply reliability. And I believe implementing a policy here, as unpopular as it is, as difficult as it is important. And yes, there are lots of good things going on, but I could personally name and have been involved with entities that don't do all they can do because there's no reason that they have to. And it seems important to me that this council actually take action to say, yes, you too. You also must be a part of the solution. It's not enough that West Basin does it. It's not enough that your neighbors do it. All of the significant players, and obviously there are probably 100 of those 300 agencies serve less than 200 people. So those are not the ones that are really significant. But all of the significant agencies that do urban water management plans that serve more than 3,000 customers should be a part of solving this problem. I know that's hard, but it seems like I just as a staff person want to recommend to you that I feel we would fail in our responsibilities if we avoided this difficult subject.
And just let me say, Joe, and thank you for that. I'm certainly not advocating my role as a council member, and I certainly know how to make hard decisions. I just feel very strongly with taking that position. Now, you've had more experience and you know more than I do about agencies, but again, if we didn't have the ability to go back in and reevaluate and change and make other decisions, then maybe I would be in a different place. But for me now, this is just my position on it.
Randy?
I think Joe has a compilation of...
I do have some language here, and I think I'll try and summarize the proposal that you have.
Yeah, and then I guess the question to the council is, do you want to take action on it today? Or do you want to postpone this until the next, no later than the next regularly scheduled meeting?
I'd be okay with that. I think that this is a work and, has made a lot of progress, but again, with the relative impact and seriousness of it, we've narrowed the issues down. It's not to prolong it, but again, if there are some other things that can come out of further, not just wordsmithing, because a lot of this hangs on just one word for a lot of folks. I think a little more time in between doesn't allow for tomfoolery. I think it allows for people to get their arms around what's being laid out, and I think it's been, the last 24 hours, certainly Randy, you and Pat and staff have done yeoman's work. Used that word yesterday, but I think it's reflective here. And whether on some of these we're going to have differences. It doesn't matter if, you be a year or two out and still have differences. But I do think that, as you just suggested, I would be very comfortable with that to leave this for. It sounds like we may come back together in another week or two. So, I support that.
Yeah, I would concur with that, and certainly I don't want to forget that. Staff, again, you guys are excellent, and the two council members did come up with new language, and I think we're almost there. There may be an issue that we're still not quite on the same page with me, but I would like to see it held over until the next meeting.
Okay,
since
that's
we-
two members.
some others.
We'd need 4 votes to proceed. We're going to put it over till the next, to the first meeting in July. That's the recommendation WRP1. All right, let's wrap this up. Mr. Natoli, you and Mr. Grindstaff, we're going to completely solve item number 11.
We got the third item for the July 12th agenda.
July meeting.
But I didn't let Mr. Grindstaff. We did make some progress, though. so-
Okay, but hopefully the two of you will come forth with some definitive solution, maybe, or 2, or 3.
We have several language changes that we've agreed on that occur in the first part of RRP1, where we clarify that what we're developing is funding priorities for state investments, and also that nothing in the policy changes the standards, recommended standards for levies in the Delta, and we have agreed to meet on before the next meeting to work further on the table that is included for the interim priority. So we didn't resolve it all. We resolved some of it.
Members, look, we've completed the action checklist. My recommendation, and I've talked with Mr. Stevens on this, is that the checklist be viewed as approved for those items where we have cast a vote and a majority of the council have agreed. And therefore, the staff should go ahead with tidying up language and all the other stuff for the eventual Delta plan. Number 2, we have agreed that those items, WRP1 and some of the others that will go over to the next meeting, be prepared for the next meeting. I know you've been talking, Joe, about a one-day meeting in early July, although that's not yet determined.
Tentatively, the 12th here at this. No?
Okay, well,
With a holiday in the middle of next week, there's no way we can produce a staff report in time for July.
Well, my
No,
intent is to
the-
use the materials we currently have.
here's Mr. Ray, let me just tell you what we're looking for at that next meeting. What we're looking for at the next meeting is only I'll explain it first, from the council action checklist proposed but not acted on by the council, to return with whatever options, alternatives seem available on the major items that remain. We have WRP1, we have Bethel Island, we've got item number 11 in the risk category, and I may be missing one, but I don't think so. I think those are the 3. And that's the starting point on the agenda. Number 2, I do suggest that we take the list of consent items that were withdrawn by members of the council, noted. This was passed out and available, I don't know, there are 12 items or something like that. Add that to the next meeting agenda, okay? Then I would also suggest that the remainder of the consent calendar where members did not withdraw, that we just act on that to get it out of the way, because although these do not rise to high levels of controversy or anything, the staff needs clearance from us on the technical changes. So on a motion, I would appreciate this.
I would move the consent calendar.
Consent calendar minus the items that were removed by members. Okay, is there a second?
Sorry, you didn't want to interrupt your second.
Second.
Question? Process? Just curious, there was discussion yesterday by Mr. Natoli in particular and Ms. Gray, and I didn't get here closure on whether or not, based on the direction you're going to provide on the consent items, staff will go back and redo language. Is the full document going to come back at that next meeting?
We don't, no, of course not. Not a chance in the world we'd have a full revised document.
Well, no,
by
but-
2 weeks from now.
Well,
It will come back.
yeah, we'll come back to the council. You know, it was discussed about the full council looking at the new language. Is that?
Yes.
I think-
Yes.
Okay.
I think then we need to recognize that probably will be sometime in August that we'll have that back to you, because if we have a meeting in early July, and then we have to incorporate those changes in policy, and then make also changes in the narrative at a time when there's other things that demand our staff's attention, that it would be I think we would find ourselves back in the same situation of having stuff that we had slammed down at the last minute.
Right.
And that's not the way you want to do the narrative for the plan.
Okay, let's get this, the consent calendar motion, absent the items withdrawn by members of the council, starting with Mr. Johnston.
Johnston, aye.
Fiorini, aye.
Eisenberg, aye.
I totally aye.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, if I could probably help clear, the three I had were very brief questions.
Well, yeah, and Ms. Marcus had a bunch of questions and suggestions and so on. I think they'll work themselves out, but I just wanted to clear up the other
Okay,
technical
I was
stuff.
going to say, if you wanted to get the three others off today, we could probably do that in a matter of
Okay,
minutes.
all right. Anything else to come before the council? Did I miss anything? Joe, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Oh, do we need to do that?
Well, they took motions on it.
We voted on each of
We
the
voted on
items,
each, yeah.
and do you want us? No. Yeah. Superfluidity shall not vitiate? Got it. Okay. Joe will tell you, but I think the 12th or something.
The 12th of July.
Well, the end of this month is 2 days from now. July. It'll be in July.
The 12th of July, a one-day meeting is what I'm contemplating to finish up the 3 items and the 12 pulled from
Questions
consent.
or issues? Yeah.
We do have one at the end of July. 2 meetings in July. I should have retired sooner.
Okay. Any other business? Thank you, members. Thank you, audience. Meeting's adjourned.